thank you, and I know it's just your wonderful spirit, your great love and devotion for the fraternity that has moved you to say all these things tonight. And I'm very well aware that so many of them, maybe all or more, could be said of other betas, could be said of you in your work in the field of medicine. I wish President Martin were here that I might begin by addressing him. I will do so in his absence. I address the Beta girls, those of you who are guests, and all who wear our badge and bear our name, members all of a great and good fraternity. Our fraternity has many treasures. I have a great many of them collected over the years, but all of us have some of the treasures in common. The badge we wear, our coat of arms, the flag, the code, the ritual. But there's another treasure about which I would speak, and I've never heard it spoken of at a convention or a Beta gathering. It's a very unique treasure, and you'll find it in the front of Son of the Stars, our pledge manual. It's a picture which comes from that old and great Kenyan chapter. Let me describe it for you. It's a picture of many years ago. It shows a young man sitting in a window seat. Beside him is a student lamp, an hourglass, books. His face is turned toward the pane. Dimly in the distance you see the towers of Alma Mater. It's night. And piercing the black canopy of the sky shine forth with great radiance 3 stars. They are the Beta stars. And the name of the picture is The Boy in the Window Seat. It's one of my favorite pictures. The Kenyan chapter years ago sent me a framed copy. But as I look at that picture, I realize that every Beta is the boy in the window seat. You and I are the boy in the window seat. But my theme for this convention and for this talk is a question. What does the boy in the window seat see? Lighted by the radiance of the Beta stars. He looks out. He sees Oxford town. It's 1839, long ago. The Republic was only 63 years old when he looked out. Oxford was not a frontier town, but it was a place from which many went forth with their dreams of fame and fortune in an expanding and opening West. A small college had begun there, And they'd builded a building, and they'd named it Harrison Hall. And that name was to live for a long time, for in that hall, something remarkable and memorable happened. But the boy in the window seat looks out again, and he sees 8 young men. It's the night of August 8, 1839. They've come up under the elms, and the stars are out. It's nearly 10 o'clock at night. They go up into Harrison Hall. They're our founders of ever-honored memory. They must have been exemplary young men. I've looked at their pictures often. I've read about them. I've thought about them. They surely had vision. They had ideals so sound that they have endured to this night. But the remarkable thing was, they were cemented together by friendships which they believed could last through life, and by enduring fidelity each to the other. The boy looks out and he sees the growing academic world, and what an experience it was, and how rapidly in this new nation these small colleges and church schools and seminaries and academies and universities sprang up. And the boy watches with the greatest eagerness as to these new colleges this fraternity carries its message to the lives and hearts of young men. He looks again, and it's now a remarkable period in the history of this fraternity. It's between 1860 and 1920. And it has been said that in those years, we probably, in this fraternity, had our pick of the cream of the crop in the American colleges where we had chapters. Some years ago, I met a woman. There were no Betas in her family, and it's an interesting thing that I mention this in the state of Indiana. In talking, she found out that I was a Beta, and she said, well, when I grew up in Indianapolis, I always believed that the greatest honor that could come to any man in college in Indiana was to become a Beta. That's the reputation we had. That's the reputation the boy in the window seat came to know. As he looked out, he continued to see this galaxy of leaders, for no fraternity has ever had such a galaxy. I can mention only a few: J. Calhanna, Willis O. Robb, Francis Sisson, Francis W. Shepherdson, James L. Gavin, Bill Dawson, and the list is long. He looks out and he sees the Silver Grays. Let me speak to you young men here tonight and ask you not to go away without realizing these Beta alumni here. They are the Silver Grays. They've come from hundreds of miles. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years have passed by, but tonight they still have the fire and the enthusiasm of the fraternity in their hearts, and they're the vital Betas that they were on the campuses of long, long ago. I've been to so many alumni banquets. I've been to so many house dedications. I've been to so many anniversaries. I've lived with the Silver Grays. I know them well. Hundreds of them across our broad domain. And I think I can give my testimony tonight that the finest men I've ever known outstanding men of achievement and accomplishment and attainment have been the silver grays of our fraternity. He looks out and he sees a grim scene. He sees boys in blue and gray killing one another, but still the fraternity goes on through those horrible years of our civil strife. And he sees the betas of Canada and the betas of the United States in World War I and World War II, many of them laying down their lives, and we have their names in ever-honored memory. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we shall remember them. He looks out and he sees the figure of Francis Wayland Shepardson, who for more than a quarter of a century was the leading fraternity figure in this country. Almost all fraternities and sororities turned to this remarkable man for his guidance, his leadership, his genius, his selfless loyalty to the fraternity system. He was one of the great molders, one of the great shapers, one of the great builders of Beta Theta Pi, and even to this day, wherever I go, men say to me, "You knew Shep, didn't you?" And I say, "Yes." "Well, I shook his hand," or "He was at my initiation." Few men I have ever known in life who have left such a tremendous impression upon the lives of others as did Shep. When he died, we wondered what to do, but others like G. Herb Smith and Cliff Gregg and Bert Bennett and Ed Brown came along, and this amazing line of leadership has ever proceeded, and the boy in the window seat has watched it. He looked out from the window seat and he saw William Raymond Baird, the man I think knew more about the American college fraternity system than any other man who ever lived. A man who was really a genius in his life. A man who made such mighty contributions to our fraternity and a great contribution to the entire fraternity world with his memorable Baird's Manual. As he sits there in the window seat, he hears, as you heard tonight, the Beta songs. James Taft Hatfield's "O Beta, thou art ever glorious." He hears Horace Logier's "Oh, start the loving cup around, up pass a brother by. We all drink from the same canteen in Beta Theta Pi." He hears Ken Rogers "When stars are hiding and there's no light to guide you by, when clouds are riding." If you're a Beta all along the way, the Beta stars will make your darkness day. For light or darkness, shine the stars of Beta Theta Pi. He looks out at our Beta conventions. What remarkable gatherings they are. Think of us here, nearly 500 strong tonight. And I urge you young men to see these Beta families come together, to see these wives dedicated to this fraternity, to see these children, to come to know these alumni, to hear the speeches, to hear the songs, to follow the business. And I will guarantee that you will turn away from this convention with an experience that you will never forget as long as you live. For there's nothing quite like a Beta convention. The boy looks out and he sees our great Beta athletes on playing field and court. He sees our great Beta scholars in the classroom, many of them Rhodes Scholars, Phi Beta Kappa, Sigma Psi. He sees the long list of Betas, the longest of any fraternity in Who's Who in America. He looks at the general fraternity, and he's amazed to think that this remarkable thing has grown up out of the humble origin of these 8 young men. For this general fraternity is an amazing organization. It's so simple, for one thing. We have no grand titles, we have no furbelows. We have no ornaments. We don't wear headgears and march around and parade, and we don't bow before this and bow before that. We come together as mature grown men acting in a mature way. We have the organization of our districts. We're governed not by men but by a code. We have officers. We have district chiefs who give their time. But we have the democratic process. And we move along. We don't stay in office forever. We get out, and other men just as good as we are follow us. And that's the strength of our fraternity. Always the infusion of new life, of new ideas, of new spirit, of new guidance and direction. The boy looks out and he sees Oxford. 100 years have gone by, and there are 1,000 Betas marched down the main street of old Oxford town. He sees it 25 years later, when beneath the stars on a gorgeous night, we dedicate a bronze plaque on the Campanile, saying that here we come together, Betas, 125 years later, to rededicate ourselves to the ideals of the founders. He sees the Campanile and he listens as the Beta bells peal across the campus every 15 minutes through day and into the night. He sees the administration building, and he remembers the great work of Ralph and Bonnie Fay and Fred and Mary Jane Brower and Ron and Lou Hellman and Pete and Ann Barnhart and these wonderful ladies that we've had there over the years. The boy in the window seat looks out and he sees that this fraternity has been made up of men of character. Some years ago, I talked with an old Indiana Beta, Ort 3, Oliver Lockhart, who had been a man of international fame. And he said to me, you know, I've kept alive over all the years my active interest in the fraternity because I think it is an organization that is marked by one thing above all else, character. And there's no place in our fraternity for men who do not believe in character. As Hugh told you, I was a lad of 18 when I attended my first convention at Swampscott, Massachusetts, and the thing that I remember to this night, extending over all the years, is the first impression I got as I entered that hall where we arrived at night, was these men of dignity, these great men who were leading our fraternity in that day. One of the chiefs was talking to me the other day about Bing Bailey. And I said, Bing Bailey typified what so many men in this fraternity have typified, refinement. He was a man of culture, and that has always played a large part in our life. And we've had another thing in this fraternity. We've had concern for one another. I could tell you, young men, some of the most touching stories you could ever hear about Betas who have traveled hundreds and even thousands of miles to see some of their Beta brothers who have been ill or dying. It has been a story of concern for one another over all the years. Now, Beta Theta Pi, and let me lay this on the line, isn't just for anyone. And when you come up to pledge season, remember that. Beta Theta Pi is for those who truly walk in the light and the radiance of the Beta stars. We have no place for cheap people. We have no place for people who do not uphold and appreciate our ideals. We have never believed in second or third raters. We are a superior society and association of men. And we believe in that, and on that we have builded over the years. In the Old Testament there is a statement that always challenges me. Joshua said to his men, "Thou art a great people and hast great power." He was not flattering them, cajoling them, puffing them up. He was saying this: because you are a great people and have great power, you have great responsibility and much is expected of you. And I say to you tonight that we are a great people and we have great power. And because of it, much is expected of us and much we must do. Before I come to the conclusion of these remarks, may I say something very, very personal to the undergraduates who are here. Perhaps some of you may think that I'm overstepping in what I say, but I will accept the challenge and say it unafraid and take whatever criticism may come. I know not what field of life you will enter, but if it is the field of politics and government, I would urge you as betas, as Canadians, as Americans, as young men of your generation, to have the courage and the will and the spirit and the character to go out and to make government what it should be, the servant of the people and of the state. To keep it above dishonesty and disgrace and indecency and graft and conniving and all the things that can bring ruin upon a free people blessed by freedom. If you go into the field, of education or teaching, I urge you to have the courage to see that that sacred thing of the teacher and the student is kept inviolate. To see that the business of education is to learn how to behave usefully, nobly, and wisely. And that education is something, because it is so sacred to the human mind and spirit, that it must be kept upon the highest pedestal and never defiled. I urge you, if you go into the arts, to see that they are not degraded, to see that they are not twisted and destroyed into something they were never meant to be, to keep them pure, to keep them true to the highest ideals of beauty and glory and honor and the inward mystery of life that has created the noblest in art. And if you go into business, I urge you to be brave enough and courageous enough to be honest with money, to be truthful in your dealings, to make your word as good as your bond, and never to sell out, and to know that there's nothing more sacred in life than to go down to your grave with the realization that you have been an honest and a truthful and a good man, no matter how poor materially you may be. And if you go into the church, be it church or synagogue or temple, I urge you to know that religion is life. It is of the soul of man. It is of the spirit. It's not a charade. It's not a fad. It's not a wrinkle. It's not something that can be distorted. For what doth the Lord require of thee but to do justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with thy God? That is religion. To visit the widows and the orphan, in their affliction, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world that is religion, pure and undefiled. And I urge you in your family and in your personal life to wear your badge as something that may inspire you to honor your family and always to bring honor to your own good name. The boy in the window seat looks down on us tonight. He's looked down for 137 years. But each of us is the boy in the window seat. And in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, other boys in the window seat will look back to this night, and they will ask, how did those Betas of that day do what they did? How did they prove to be so true to their ideals, to hold high the torch and to carry it forward in the long, illustrious line? So I urge you to hold on to the brotherhood that has been so sacred to so many, to the ideals that have been anchors in so many lives. O Beta, thou art glorious. Let us be able to say that. Let us believe it. And let us remember, as we enter upon this convention, that we are a great people and we have great power. And to whomever much is given, of him will much be required. And much has been given to me, thank God, because I became a member of this association long, long ago. I trust I shall not be wanting in that which is required of me.